Opelousas Museum of Art, there's an exhibit of the works of Louisiana primitive painter Clementine Hunter. She didn't begin her art career in earnest until her 50s, but left us a large and deep pool of personal stories in paint. Producer Charles Bush has tonight's People and Places feature story.
Clementine's paintings document from the role or perspective of an insider the story of this plantation life. Clementine picked up paint and a brush and documented this lifestyle, which has disappeared. And for all future generations, regardless of her ability or your thoughts about her painting talents, she has been a historian and she's documented this lifestyle. She documented from the role of an insider's perspective life on the southern plantation.
I indeed baptize thee. Yes. In the name of the Father.
Picking cotton, wash days, funerals, baptizing. These were all documented from someone who lived the life. Clementine's success, I think, partly has to do with the fact that Melrose Plantation was one of the rich historical spots in really the South. Founded by a freed black slave in the late 1700s, Marie-Thérèse Coincoin, Melrose has been an enclave for 200 years of the power of women to achieve. And Clementine has continued this tradition of Melrose, of strong women. Clementine's paintings captured everyday life on the plantation. In fact, her paintings can be basically divided into three categories. Scenes of work, this would be the cotton picking, this would be the wash day. There are scenes of play. There is Saturday night at the honky tonk. There's a fish fry. The third category of her paintings is religion. She was a very religious person, but in a rather odd way. She went to the Catholic Church, but she preferred the Baptist church because she said she always liked the singing better. The cotton picking scene shown here reflects the period of time when cotton was picked by hand before World War II. These ladies are out in the field picking cotton, putting them in the bag. Clementine always reminisced that the favorite part of her life was picking cotton, which I couldn't imagine anything more difficult. She said they would go down the rows, they would sing songs and pick cotton, they'd leave their babies at the turn row at the end in the shade, and this is how she has documented something that we don't see anymore. Most kids today have never seen anyone pick cotton by hand. This is wash day. Again, our social cultural historian, every Monday they washed at Melrose. They had a big kettle in the backyard. They boiled water in, they washed the clothes, they hung them on the line. This is, of course, the day also they cooked red beans and rice for lunch because they could put the beans on to cook and it wouldn't take a lot of attention while they were out in the yard doing the wash. So here is something, again, that Clementine has documented that has basically disappeared from the Southern way of life. A great deal of the success of any artist probably has to do with marketing. And Clementine lived in an environment of Melrose Plantation where many famous writers, painters visited there. Particularly, there was a man named Francois Mignon who had been active in New York, and he came to Melrose, and one of his causes in life was to promote Clementine. And of course, her paintings, in some ways, reflected the civil rights movement. There was a great interest in African-American talents and achievements in the 1960s, and Clementine represented the absolutely beautiful demonstration of African-American artistic talents. If someone, a little lady in Natchitoches, can do this and get worldwide recognition, it tells you that if you have a story to tell and the wherewithal and the desire to do it, you can become a success. In October of 1987, she didn't paint for a week or two, and then we knew that the end was near, and she died in January of 1988. So up until like 3 months before she died, at the age of 101, she was still painting. To be art, to me, has to be enjoyed. And here in Opelousas, in the last month and a half, there have been 3,000 school kids come here and see these paintings. And I think that would make Clementine excited, and I think it speaks well for art. If art is stored in a basement, no one's looking at it, it's art, but the joy of art is appreciation. Clementine started painting around 50 years of age, so, you know, it's never too old to start. I mean, you think, gosh, I'm 50, I've already had a career. Clementine reinvented herself. And the acceptance speech at the Academy Awards on Sunday night, where Steven Soderbergh talked about creativity in all aspects of the arts, I think Clementine is a very good reflection of that. Someone living on a plantation with no education, 50 years old, was creative. And that should be a challenge to all of us, that creativity is not something that you have to do when you're young or when you're well educated, that it's something that you do from inside.
The exhibit at the Opelousas Museum of Art runs through the 18th of this month. That's our program for this evening. Next week, curbing cost in Medicaid by curbing prescription drugs. Plus, what does it mean for flood victims in the Shreveport area now that the Northwest is declared a disaster zone? Until next week, thanks so much for joining us. That's the state we're in.